I never expected to feel anything again, not like this. Not after everything. When my wife left, it didn't end with slammed doors or screaming matches. It ended in silence. Months of drifting apart, nights spent back to back in bed, smiles. That never reached our eyes. Then one morning, she packed her things and said she needed to feel alive again. And just like that, she was gone. I thought I'd buried whatever part of me used to believe in passion. But that was before I walked into that dance studio and met her. Lila. That name alone tastes like honey and heat in my mouth. I remember the exact moment I saw her leaning against the mirror with a clipboard in one hand. Her body balanced like a ballerina, even in stillness. Her hair was swept up, loose strands tumbling down her neck, and she wore a simple black tank top and yoga pants, but somehow made it look like lingerie. Her eyes met mine across the room. Hazel flecked with gold, and so intense it made me forget how to breathe. She didn't smile right away. She just looked at me like she knew, like she saw all the parts of me I didn't want anyone to see. The hurt, the loneliness, the longing I buried under layers of sarcasm and polite small talk. I had signed up for a beginner's class, mostly because my sister wouldn't shut up about it. She said it would shake something loose in me. I thought it was bullshit. Until Lila walked over and took my hand. "You're new," she said, not asking. Her voice was low and rich, like velvet dipped in smoke. I nodded, suddenly tongue-tied. "Good," she said. Fresh clay. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but her hand slid to the small of my back, her fingers settling with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Follow my lead," she murmured, and just like that, I was hers. The music started slow and sensual, something Latin, I think. But I was too focused on the curve of her hip and the way she moved like each beat belonged to her. I tripped over my own feet. She didn't laugh. She just steadied me, our bodies brushing close enough to make my skin burn. "You're too in your head," she whispered, her breath grazing my cheek. "Let go. Trust me." I hadn't trusted anyone in years. But something about her made me want to. By the end of the hour, I was dripping sweat, dizzy, and completely under her spell. I stayed behind after class, pretending to need help with something. Anything. She leaned against the bar, watching me with a half smile, like she knew exactly what game I was playing. "You're not as stiff as you think," she said. "You just need to feel more." She reached out, brushing her fingers along my arm as she passed. I swear my whole body lit up. "I'll see you next week," she said over her shoulder. And then she was gone. I stood there for a long time after, the scent of her skin still lingering in the air. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, remembering the way she moved, the way her eyes lingered just a second too long. I told myself it was just physical, just lust, just a reaction to someone finally touching me again. But deep down, I knew better. It wasn't just her body that pulled me in, it was her presence. That calm, electric stillness. That unspoken promise in her gaze. It had been years since someone looked at me like that. Maybe no one ever had. And now all I could think about was her. The next class. The next chance to touch her, to feel her breath against my skin. I knew it was dangerous. I knew I was playing with fire. But for the first time in a long, long while, I wanted to burn. Asterisk, I didn't mean for it to become an obsession. But after that first night, after Lila's hands had touched me, guided me, seen me, I couldn't stop thinking about her. She was in my head like a song I couldn't get rid of, and I didn't want to. I started rearranging my week around those classes. Tuesdays became sacred. Then I found out she taught Thursdays too, and suddenly I was a 2-night-a-week dancer. I told myself it was for the movement, for the progress. But it wasn't. It was her. It's the way she floated into the studio with that barely there smile. Like she knew everyone was watching but didn't need their attention. She already had mine. Every class she picked someone new to pair with except me. She always chose me. Said she liked my rawness. Wasn't sure if that was a compliment or just something she said to make me stay. Either way, it worked. Being near her was like standing in the sun after years of cold. But it also scared the hell out of me. There were nights when her fingers would linger just a second too long on my waist. Or she'd press her palm to my chest to find the beat, and I swear I could feel the blood rushing under my skin like I was 19 again. One night after class, I offered to walk her to her car. The sky had opened up, warm summer rain soaking the pavement, making everything smell like wet cement and nostalgia. She looked at me, tilted her head, and asked, "You ever kiss someone?" In the rain. I shook my head, breath caught somewhere between anticipation and fear. She didn't wait for me to say more. She closed the space between us and kissed me like she'd been holding it back for weeks. Her mouth was soft and full, her lips demanding but careful. And my hands instinctively found the curve of her hips, pulling her close. The rain blurred. The rest of the world. That kiss broke something open in me. We didn't go home. She unlocked the studio again, flicked on the soft corner lights, and pulled me back to the middle of the floor. "Dance with me," she whispered, even though there was no music. We moved together like we already knew the steps, like our bodies had been memorizing each other in secret. When she slid her hands under my shirt, I didn't stop her. I didn't want to. Her touch was slow, careful, not rushed, not fumbling, like she was reading me. Okay? And I was desperate to be read. She kissed down my chest, her fingers unbuckling my belt with quiet confidence. And in that moment, I forgot who I'd been before her. She made me feel like I mattered, like I was seen. That night, we made love on the studio floor, the hardwood. Cool against our backs, our breaths loud in the empty room. It wasn't just physical. It was something deeper. Her eyes never left mine. And even when it was over, she stayed close, her head on my shoulder, her leg tangled with mine. "Ayo. Don't have to pretend with me," she whispered, tracing circles on my chest. "I know what it's like to lose things." I didn't ask what she meant. I just held her tighter. After that, everything changed. The space between us in class vanished. Her voice in my ear during instruction sent shivers through me, even if we were surrounded by other students. We'd steal moments behind the curtains. In the storage closet, even in her car, breathless and laughing, like two people chasing something just out of reach. I didn't ask where she went after, or if she saw anyone else. I didn't want to ruin it with questions. But something inside me was shifting. I was falling hard and fast. And quietly, I started to wonder if she was too. I told myself not to hope. Not to imagine mornings with her in my bed or dinners with soft jazz playing while she danced in the kitchen. But late at night, when I was alone, I couldn't help it. I was already picturing a future, one with her in it. One where this whatever it was wasn't just a beautiful escape, but something real. Something that could finally make me feel whole again. I should have known better. I should have known that something that felt this good, this electric, couldn't come without strings, without shadows. But when you've been starving for something real, something that pulls you out of the hollow, quiet of your life, you ignore the signs. You pretend not to notice when the person you're falling for flinches at emotional questions, or keeps the curtains drawn around their private life. In those first few weeks with Lila, I convinced myself what we had was different, that it was growing. I thought maybe, just maybe, she felt the same heat burning through her chest every time we touched. But eventually, the cracks started to show. It wasn't the sex that was still slow and intense and honestly addictive. It was everything outside of it. When I reached for her hand in public, she pulled away like I'd exposed a secret. When I asked to meet for coffee or go out for dinner, she brushed it off with a soft, practiced smile. "This is easier," she'd say, meaning the studio, a dance floor, a little world we built between four mirrored walls. I tried to be patient. I told myself she needed time, space. Maybe she was scared. Hell, I was too. But it's a strange thing being so close to someone physically, emotionally. spiritually and still feeling like you're kept at arm's length. One night after class, she leaned into me in the empty studio, her body warm against mine, her breath tracing the side of my neck. "You think too much," she whispered, her fingers sliding under my shirt. And I let her pull me into the haze again. But even as my body moved with hers, even as we lost ourselves on the floor, I felt something tightening in my chest. Like I was falling into a space she had no intention of catching me in. The moment that changed everything came on a Friday. I wasn't supposed to be at the studio, but I'd left my jacket there the night before. Figured I'd swing by, grab it, maybe even catch a glimpse of her. I still don't know what made me stop when I saw her getting into that black SUV. Outside the studio, something about the way she looked around first, something about the way she kissed the driver before sliding into the passenger seat. My gut sank. I followed them. I know how that sounds, creepy, jealous, desperate. Maybe it was all of those things. But I needed to know. Needed to confirm the thing I didn't want to believe. They ended up at a quiet, dimly lit bar downtown. I parked across the street and watched through the window as they took a booth in the back. He was older, maybe early 40s, expensive watch glinting under the overhead light. He leaned in close to her, touched her wrist, laughed like he knew. Her inside and out. And she looked different. Not like the grounded, confident Leela I knew in the studio. No, this version was softer, smaller, like she was trying to be whoever he wanted her to be. And when she kissed him, when she smiled like nothing else existed, something inside me split open. I sat there for almost an hour, numb, watching them. Then I drove home in silence. That night, I didn't eat, didn't sleep. Her name flashed on my phone once, just a casual text. "Thinking of you. Can't wait to see you Tuesday." And for a second, I almost replied like nothing had happened. Almost played along. But I couldn't. I was drowning in the weight of her lie. What hurt wasn't just that she had someone else. It was how she looked at him, the same way she looked at me. It's the same quiet intensity, the same tenderness, the same fire. I wasn't special. I wasn't different. I was just one of the stories she was spinning. It's one of the men she let believe. They mattered, and the worst part, even after knowing all that, I still wanted her. Asterisk, I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Hurleylaw kissing him, laughing with him, looking at him like he was the center of her world. That image dug itself into my chest like a splinter I couldn't pull free. I went back and replayed every moment between us, every soft moan, every whispered word, every quiet, trembling breath she'd given me in the dark hand. I started to wonder if any of it was real. Maybe she was just good at it. Maybe she knew exactly how to make a man feel like the only one in the room, and I'd been naive enough to fall for the act. But still, when Tuesday rolled around, I went to class. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself I'd walk away. But when it came time, I found myself standing outside that studio like an addict waiting for his fix. She looked radiant when she walked in sweatpants. Messy bun, a little smudge of eyeliner under one eye, like she hadn't slept well either. Our eyes met in the mirror, and for a second, everything in me ached. I wanted to grab her and ask why. I wanted to shake her, to kiss her, to understand. But I did nothing. I played my part. I danced. I nodded when she corrected my posture. I smiled when she teased me gently about my footwork. It was all mechanical, hollow. But she didn't notice, at least I didn't think she did. Not until class ended, and she walked up behind me while I was tying my shoes. "Hey," she said, softly. "You okay? You were different tonight." I looked up at her, and everything I'd been holding back came dangerously close to spilling out. But I just forced a small smile. "Long day." I lied. Her gaze lingered on me, searching, and for a moment I thought she might confess. "Tell me about him. Say something, anything that would make it make sense." But instead she leaned in and brushed a kiss over my cheek. "Come by tomorrow night," she whispered. "Just us." And like a fool, I nodded. That night, I told myself it would be the last I needed to hear it from her. I needed the truth. I showed up at the studio after hours. She was waiting, barefoot, wearing a loose sweater that fell off one shoulder. She looked beautiful, tired, and somehow more fragile than I'd ever seen her. We danced for a while, no music, just the rhythm of our breathing. Her hands were soft but tentative, like she felt the space that had grown between us but didn't know how to close it. Finally, I stopped. I pulled away. "Who is he?" I asked. My voice barely came out. "The guy in the black SUV." Her body stiffened. For a second, she didn't speak. Then she exhaled slowly, eyes closed, like someone who'd just taken a bullet. "You followed me?" Not a question. It's quiet devastation. "I saw you," I said. "You kissed him." She turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. Silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. His name's Callum, she said finally. "We've been off and on for years. It's complicated." I laughed bitterly. "It always is." She turned back to me and her face was open, raw. "I didn't plan this," she whispered. "You were supposed to be just another student. But then you looked at me like I was. Still worth something, and I got lost in that." "You let me get lost in it?" I snapped. "You made me believe I mattered to you?" Her voice cracked. "You do." But I shook my head. Not enough. The silence that followed was so heavy, I thought I'd drown in it. She took a step toward me, her voice barely audible. "I don't know how to be with someone who really sees me, who expects more than I'm used to giving. Just like that." I understood. She wasn't cruel. She was scared. And I was the one who'd found her heart when she'd spent years hiding it away. But knowing that didn't fix the ache. It didn't make it easier to breathe when she touched me. I could forgive her for being broken. I just didn't know if I could survive trying to love her through it. ChatGPT said, "I wish I could say I walked away after that night. That I held on to some shred of dignity, gathered my things, and left the studio and Heard behind. But the truth is messier. The truth is, when someone has touched you in a place you thought was long dead, it's almost impossible to pull free, even when you know it's hurting you." Lila had her past, her baggage, her secrets, and I had mine. But somewhere in that mess, I'd convinced myself we could find something real, something worth the pain. So I stayed. Not because I was weak, but because I still believed she could choose me. That if I just held on long enough, she'd realize I was the one she should be with. I kept going to class, kept dancing with her, kept pretending like the bruise in my chest didn't get deeper every time she smiled, like nothing had changed. At first, she was careful. We didn't talk about Callum, didn't acknowledge the space that had opened up between us. Still touched me when we danced, still let her eyes linger on my mouth when I spoke, still whispered things in my ear that made my knees weak. But it all felt different now, like we were standing on borrowed time. There was always a hesitation in her movements, like she was holding back. And sometimes I caught her checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Scanning the screen with a look I didn't recognize. It wasn't guilt, it was fear. And that terrified me more than anything. One night after class, she asked me to come upstairs to her loft above the studio. I'd never been up there before. It was small and quiet, filled with warm light and books and a faint scent of lavender. She poured us wine, played a slow, jazzy record, and curled up beside me on the couch like we'd done this 1,000 times before. And for a while, it felt almost normal. It's like we were a real couple, like we had a future. I remember brushing her hair back from her face, kissing her slowly, tasting every sigh she gave me like it was a promise. We made love that night slower, deeper than ever before, like we were saying everything we didn't have the courage to speak aloud. But afterward, she cried. Not loud sobs, just silent tears sliding down her cheeks as she lay curled into me. "I don't know how to leave him," she whispered. And those 7 words cracked everything open. Because it wasn't just that she hadn't left Hemet, was that she didn't know how. She was still his, still tethered to a life that didn't include me, no matter how much she claimed to want something else. I held her until she fell asleep, my arms around her while my heart quietly bled out. The next morning, I left before she woke up. I needed air. I needed clarity. I drove aimlessly for hours, winding through neighborhoods I didn't know. Watching couples walk hand in hand on sidewalks, feeling like an outsider to a life I'd never get to have. I wanted to be angry, furious. I wanted to hate her for dragging me into this mess, for making me fall for something that was never really mine. But all I felt was grief. That aching, helpless grief you get when you finally realize love, no matter how deep, how electric, can't fix everything. When she texted later that afternoon, "I miss you already. Come back to me." I didn't answer, not right away. I just stared at the screen, her words glowing in the palm of my hand like a lifeline. And I asked myself the question I'd been avoiding for weeks. What am I holding on to? A woman who couldn't choose me? A love that came second to someone else? A dream that hurt more than it healed? But even with all that, God help me, I still wanted her to choose me. Asterisk, I thought heartbreak was loud. I thought it came with yelling, slamming doors, dramatic goodbyes in the rain. But when it finally ended between us, it was quiet. Still, like the silence after a storm, the kind that settles deep in your bones and stays there. I didn't go back to the studio, stopped answering her texts for the first time in months. I chose myself, and it felt like peeling off my own skin. Every fiber of me wanted to run back, to pretend none of it had happened, to slip back into the soft, dangerous haze of her touch. But I didn't. I let the silence grow between us. Let it swallow what was left. 2 weeks passed before she showed up at my door. I hadn't told her where I lived. But I guess she figured it out. Lila always paid attention, even when she pretended not to. She looked different, tired, pale. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup gone, and in her eyes something was unraveling. "Can I come in?" she asked. I should have said no. I should have closed the door and saved what little strength I had left. But I stepped aside. She walked in like she belonged there, like she'd always belonged there, and suddenly the air in the room felt thick with every memory we'd ever made. We sat across from each other on my couch, like strangers trying to find a way back. She didn't touch me, didn't try to kiss me. She just looked at me with those stormy, conflicted eyes and said, "I told him it's over." The words hung between us, heavy and unreal. And I asked. My voice was calmer than I expected. "And I don't know who I am without that." "Life?" she whispered. "I don't know how to be the woman you deserve." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and tell her she already was, that I didn't need perfect, I just needed honest. I just needed her. "I loved you." I said past tense, even though every inch of me still did. "I wanted to be your place to land, but I can't keep waiting for you to decide if I'm enough." She started crying then, and this time I didn't reach for her. I let her fall apart because I couldn't be the one to hold her together anymore. "I thought I could have both," she said through broken sobs. "I thought I could love you without losing everything else." I looked at her and realized something that nearly broke me. She really did love me, just not enough to choose me first. She stayed for a while, talking, crying, apologizing for things that couldn't be fixed. And when she finally stood to leave, she turned at the door and said, "You changed me." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, because she'd changed me, too. She'd woken something in me I thought I'd buried years ago. She made me feel alive again, even if the cost was this quiet kind of devastation. After she left, I sat in the dark for a long time. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just existed. And slowly I started to feel something else rise up in the space where she used to live inside me. Peace. Not the kind that comes from getting what you want, but the kind that comes from finally letting go. She wasn't my future. She was the fire that taught me how to feel again, how to ache and want and hope. And maybe that's all she was ever meant to be. Weeks turned into months. I found a new dance class in a different part of the city. Still catch myself watching the door sometimes, half expecting her to walk through. But she doesn't. And I've stopped needing her to. I still dance, still breathe in the music. Still remember the way her body moved with mine, like we were made for it. But I don't miss the ache anymore. I don't miss the question of whether I was ever enough. Lila was the storm I walked into willingly, and now I've learned how to walk back out.